Getting quite a few questions asking what I'm going to chink the cabin with. So this is sphagnum moss. There's lots of this on the property. It's all over the lower areas here. So that's going to get stuffed into the gaps between the logs. I'll use a little stick wedge. And then this nice gray clay, beautiful, clean, really fine clay. And I like the color. So that's going to go on the outside and the inside of the chinking. So moss in the center of the logs, so basically there, and then clay inside and outside. So you'll see a nice gray chink line between the. That's my natural materials. I have all kinds of this clay on the property as well. Enough, more than enough to do this cabin and a couple other cabins plus some other projects with it, and also all kinds of moss for chinking. So like I said, I'm going to dry this stuff out. I'll probably mix this clay with some dried grass. Lots of that around as well once that dies back in another month. This piece of striped maple. Really feeling that heat already. I'm just starting to work in this temperature. This striped maple is nowhere near as hard as the red maple, or especially the sugar maple that's on the property. A lot of people call red maple up here soft maple and sugar maple hard maple. So I think I'll probably make a sugar maple wedge later, because this one might not have the strength on the wedge. Plus I'll fashion this handle so it's a little more comfortable later, but it's good enough to get started and show you what I'm doing with this chinking. I've got this little Frost River canvas bucket. I wouldn't hang this up with water and it will just start dripping through slowly, but it's really handy for just grabbing this clay and some of the moss. Some of that moss that was exposed to the air was able to start drying out naturally, as we didn't have much rain this week, finally. So you can see that turning yellow or white. That's drying out, so I need to get all this stuff spread out and dried. So all I'm going to do is stick this in the cracks and put the clay over top of it. Like I said, I'm not going to use this green like this. I'll take this back out because it needs to dry properly before I fill that space up. If you liked playing with mud when you were a kid, the clay was the best stuff. I'm just going to make that into a bit of a caulking bead. Great, now I got a mosquito flying around my head. I'm not going to smack myself with this. Just take a little bit of water, get it on my hand. I can make a stick and tool it with the stick to get that, you know, without fingerprints in it. But yeah, you can just keep adding water, another thin layer if you want. So that's it. That's what it's going to look like. Except, well, it's still wet. Just clean that up. Just have to keep the water off of that because it's not going to be fire hardened, so that's actually always going to be able to absorb water if you were to get water on it. That's why there's a big overhang on the edge of the roof. I just remembered one of the other questions I keep getting is, what am I doing about timbers or boards? And what I decided, I did hew and saw some of my own. I'll show you that in another clip. But what I decided for this cabin is I just need to get it weather tight before the snow flies. And I have plans for these other cabins, and I cut all the wood for those, including all the trees, so it's all seasoning. So those cabins will be completely made by hand. This one, I took some of the logs, quite a few of the logs, and got them milled. So it's green, it's unseasoned, 2x4s, 2x6s, and 1x10. These big timbers, these big square timbers, are hemlock that the previous owner of this property cut down and milled. So these are seasoned, that's why I can actually handle them. If they were wet, I wouldn't be able to lift them. It's hard enough when they're dry. A couple of those 12-footers were pretty wet still, so they were extremely heavy. These 14-footers for the roof aren't too bad. So it's hemlock, it's from the area, it's milled in a sort of a rustic manner with an really old mill actually. So that's my compromise. I just have to get this thing done. So the great thing is it only cost me $540 for all of the wood to build the floor, second floor, and roof. And the roof is 300 2x4s on its own. Because that wood is so cheap and it's local and it's sustainable, I'm using that instead of insulation, just going with thicker wood on the roof. So that's the plan. That's why I'm using the wood that I'm using. So you're going to see me bringing it in, and like I said, it's so cheap getting it milled yourself like that, and I've got so much of it available that I can't see not doing that. It's still kind of within the principle of building this cabin as cheaply as possible. My mindset and my dream was always to live basically for free. If I can build this cabin and have no mortgage on it, it's completely paid off. This is debt-free. I am debt-free, and this will continue to let me be debt-free, and I could live here forever. I could sell off other assets and never have to earn another dime. That being said, I don't trust the stock market. I don't trust a lot of investments. I don't trust the real estate bubble the way it is right now. So I'm basically living off of the money that I earn doing the things like YouTube and writing and some brand ambassadorships and things like that. So I want to get into that in another episode or a few more episodes, and how to earn enough money to support the life that you want to live, especially if you're satisfied with a simple life and a rewarding life, how you can make that happen and finance it through things that you enjoy doing. So really looking forward to sharing all of that story with you as well. So that's what you're seeing here. That's where this lumber that I'm bringing in is coming from. These are the trees that I cut down back in, I think it was March or April, over on my friend Terry and Ashley's property. I should have debarked them then. I should have stripped the bark off, but I didn't get around to it because I've been busy. But it's full of pine grubs. Pine beetle grubs that are starting to eat the wood under the bark, so I need to get this bark off now, and maybe even start hewing some of them or cutting them into boards, or at least beams. So while I'm sitting around doing some menial miscellaneous tasks, I thought I should probably give some credit to some people that I've been meaning to for a while. Give a shout out to some guys that helped me along in social media when I was starting out. You know, making videos for YouTube and Instagram and Facebook is actually quite time consuming. It's quite a bit of work. You have to get out there and of course film. You know, building a cabin, for example, I'm not just building the cabin, I'm setting 2 cameras out and trying to get multiple angles of me actually doing every single step of the process. So that's probably doubled or maybe even tripled the time that it takes to build the cabin, and to do any task for that matter. Of course, Joe Robinet, when he contacted me last July, it is now, July 2016, to go out trout fishing with him, I had no idea that was going to be one of the catalysts to me getting more interested in YouTube. We were just 2 guys interested in similar things that want to get together and do some canoeing and fishing together. So that was great. I really appreciate it, Joe. And one of the other things that Joe did for me was introduce me to some other influencers on YouTube, but also some other people that he thought I'd be interested in getting to know better. Anyway, one of the guys Joe introduced me to was Zed from Zed Outdoors, UK bushcrafter. Zed He's been doing bushcraft for about 3 years, but he has a very unique approach on YouTube, and that is to go out and find an expert in something that he's interested in and get that expert to teach himself how to do that craft. And he films that tutorial, showing the lessons, showing the successes and the mistakes that he makes, and in a down-to-earth kind of way. So I really, like I said, I have to respect that. So Zed, I really appreciate the friendship, and I appreciate the help you've given me over the last year and a half. So Zed's building a pretty cool shelter right now with some sort of timber framing techniques. And it's pretty cool for what he has available for resources in this area. And hopefully, Zed, you can get over here next year and come up to the cabin. We'll sit around the fire and have a chat. So that's it for this short update video, guys. Don't forget to tune in on Friday for the main update episode of the Log Cabin.